Bullets, betrayal, and a broken heart. The rain hit the pavement in erratic bursts, hammering the darkened alleyway where Aiden Carter pressed his back against the cold brick wall. The stench of gunpowder clung to his jacket, mingling with the blood seeping from the gash in his side. He clutched his ribs and forced himself to breathe through the pain. He had been set up. Less than an hour ago, Aiden had walked into what was supposed to be a simple arms deal, another step in his long, dangerous career. But the moment he handed over the briefcase, the warehouse doors slammed shut, and gunfire erupted. The men he trusted had turned on him. The men he called brothers. And at the center of it all was her. Elena Voss stood with a pistol still smoking in her gloved hands. The same hands that had once traced the scars on his skin, that had pulled him close on nights filled with whispered promises. Her emerald eyes held no warmth as she watched him stagger back, clutching his bleeding side. Why? His voice was hoarse, raw from the betrayal slicing deeper than any bullet wound. She tilted her head, a smirk curling at the edges of her lips. You were getting in the way, love. Nothing personal. The words were a dagger to his chest, sharper than the lead tearing through his body. Nothing personal. He had killed for her, bled for her. And now, she was walking away, leaving him to die. The goons surrounding her lowered their weapons as she turned on her heel, heels clicking against the warehouse floor. Make sure he doesn't get back up, she called over her shoulder. Aiden had no plans of staying down. As the first man stepped forward, he moved on instinct. Years of training, muscle memory, and sheer survival instinct took over. His hand shot out, snatching the pistol from the nearest thug's belt. A single shot, one down. He rolled, ignoring the pain lancing through his body, and fired twice more. Chaos erupted. The air filled with the deafening crack of gunfire, the scent of burning cordite. Aiden didn't hesitate. He grabbed a fallen rifle, his fingers slick with blood, and pushed forward. He wasn't just fighting to survive, he was hunting. By the time he stumbled out of the warehouse, rain washing the blood from his hands, Elena was gone. But her betrayal burned like wildfire in his veins. She had made a mistake. She should have made sure he stayed dead. Now, Aiden Carter had a reason to live, and that reason was vengeance. The city was a labyrinth of neon lights and endless rain, a place where the shadows stretched long, swallowing men like Aiden whole. He limped through the back alleys, one hand pressed against his wounded side, the other gripping the stolen pistol like a lifeline. The cold night air stung his lungs, but it wasn't the pain that kept him moving. It was rage, a seething, venomous thing that coiled in his gut and whispered a single word over and over. Elena. She had played him, used him, and left him for dead. But he wasn't dead, and that meant she wasn't safe. Aiden reached a rusted fire escape, pulling himself up with a grunt. Every movement sent fresh agony lancing through his ribs, but he forced himself upward, climbing until he reached the rooftop. The city stretched out before him, glowing, pulsing, alive. Somewhere out there, Elena was counting her money, thinking she had won. She was wrong. He needed information, and he knew exactly where to get it. The club was buried deep in the underbelly of the city, where criminals drank, laughed, and made deals over blood-stained tables. Aiden knew the place well. He and Elena used to come here together. He clenched his jaw and pushed through the doors. The bass, heavy music pounded in his chest as he scanned the room. There, Vincent Dorn, a fixer, a broker of secrets, and a man who always knew more than he let on. Aiden shoved his way through the crowd, slamming a bloodied hand onto Vincent's table. The man barely flinched, simply tilting his whiskey glass before looking up. Well, Vincent mused. You look like hell, Carter. Where is she? Aiden growled. Vincent chuckled, but his amusement didn't last long. Aiden pulled the pistol and pressed it against his forehead. I'm not in the mood for games, Aiden snarled. Vincent sighed, swirling his drink. You're making a mistake, my friend. You should let this go. Aiden cocked the hammer back. Wrong answer. Vincent's smirk faded. He lifted a hand, placating. All right. She's with Rook. Aiden's grip tightened. Rook. The name sent a fresh wave of fury through him. The man was a ghost, a power broker who pulled strings from the shadows. If Elena was with him, it meant this was bigger than betrayal. It meant war. Aiden released Vincent with a shove and turned to leave. He had a name, a target, and a bullet with Elena's name on it. The hunt was on. The night smelled of rain and gunpowder. Aiden moved like a predator through the city's underbelly, his mind locked onto one singular goal: find Elena, find Rook, and end this. His ribs screamed in protest, but he ignored the pain. He had dealt with worse. Pain was just another reminder that he was still breathing, still fighting. And he wasn't stopping until he got answers. Rook's name wasn't spoken lightly. The man was a phantom, a myth whispered in dark corners, but Aiden knew better. He had seen his work up close. Entire syndicates swallowed whole, entire lives erased overnight. If Elena was working with him, it meant she had never been just another thief. She had played a deeper game, and Aiden had been too blind to see it. Not anymore. Vincent's tip led him to a private airstrip on the city's outskirts, hidden behind layers of false identities and armed guards. Aiden crouched in the darkness outside the perimeter, his stolen rifle pressed against his shoulder. A sleek black jet idled on the runway, its engines humming softly, and standing near the boarding stairs, draped in the golden glow of the floodlights. Elena. Aiden's breath hitched. Even now, even after everything, she still had that effect on him. She wore a tailored suit, the kind that said she had stepped into a world far beyond the one they used to share. She looked untouchable, unbreakable, but Aiden knew better. Rook wasn't in sight, but his men were. At least a dozen, moving with the efficiency of professionals. This wasn't just a quick escape. This was a power move. Aiden exhaled slowly. He had the shot. He could end this now. One pull of the trigger, and Elena Voss would be nothing more than a bloody memory. But he hesitated. Damn it. His grip on the trigger loosened. Killing her from the shadows wasn't enough. He needed her to see him. To know he had survived. To know that whatever game she was playing, it wasn't over. Aiden slung the rifle over his shoulder, drew his pistol, and stepped into the light. Going somewhere. The entire airstrip seemed to freeze. Guns snapped up, safeties clicked off, and Elena turned to face him. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Shock, maybe even regret. But it was gone just as fast, replaced by that infuriating smirk. Aiden, she said smoothly, as if they were old friends meeting for coffee. I was wondering when you'd catch up. Aiden's jaw clenched. I should put a bullet in you. She tilted her head, amusement dancing in her eyes. Then why haven't you? The truth burned in his throat. Because he wanted answers. Because he wanted to know if any of it had ever been real. Because some twisted part of him still wanted to believe in the woman he once loved. The guards began to move, but Elena lifted a hand, stopping them. I'll handle this. She stepped forward, slow, measured, every movement designed to remind him that she was in control. Walk away, Aiden, she said, voice softer now. This isn't your fight anymore. He laughed, low and bitter. That's where you're wrong. He raised his gun, and for the first time, Elena's smirk faltered. Aiden. The world exploded into chaos. The roar of engines, the crack of gunfire. Someone had opened fire, but it wasn't Aiden. A black SUV tore onto the runway, its headlights blinding. Aiden barely had time to react before a bullet whizzed past his head. He dove for cover behind a stack of cargo crates, cursing under his breath. The new players on the field weren't Rook's men. Their tactical gear, their precision, it screamed government. The feds. Elena was already moving, barking orders as she sprinted toward the jet. The guards engaged the new attackers, and Aiden found himself caught in the crossfire. Bullets shredded through the crates around him. He had two choices, run, or fight his way to Elena. He chose the latter. Gritting his teeth, Aiden sprinted toward the jet, dodging fire and returning shots where he could. He saw Elena reaching the stairs, one foot on the first step, and something inside him snapped. Not this time. He tackled her. They hit the tarmac hard, rolling across the wet concrete. She fought like hell, but Aiden pinned her, his gun pressing against her ribs. End of the line, he panted. Elena met his gaze, her breath coming fast, her pulse hammering beneath his grip. For a second, just a second, there was something raw in her eyes. Then she whispered, "No, Aiden. It's just the beginning." And before he could react, she shoved something into his hand. A key. Then the butt of her pistol crashed against his temple, and the world went dark. Aiden woke to the taste of blood and the distant roar of jet engines. His head pounded like a war drum, his vision swimming as he pushed himself up from the cold tarmac. The private jet was gone, a trail of heat shimmering in the rain-soaked air where its engines had been. He swore under his breath and clenched the key Elena had given him. Why? She could have killed him. She should have. Instead, she gave him this, whatever this was. Aiden staggered to his feet, sirens wailing in the distance. The feds had wiped out most of Rook's men, but a few still lay twitching on the ground, their final breaths stolen by precision gunfire. Whoever these agents were, they had been hunting Rook long before Aiden showed up. And now, with Elena gone, he was the only loose end left. He needed to move. With a grunt, Aiden dragged himself into the shadows, slipping between cargo crates and disappearing into the maze of the airstrip. He didn't stop until he found an abandoned staff car near the perimeter. It was unlocked. Big mistake. Sliding behind the wheel, he took a breath and examined the key in his hand. It was small, silver, unmarked, no engraving, no numbers. But he had seen keys like this before. Safety deposit boxes. The kind people used to stash things they didn't want anyone to find. Elena had given him a lead. He wasn't sure if it was a warning, a plea, or part of a bigger game. But Aiden wasn't the kind of man to ignore a gift from a ghost. He started the car and peeled out into the night. The city was still waking up when Aiden pulled into the underground parking garage of a private banking firm in Midtown. He had cleaned up as best as he could, but his knuckles were still bruised, his ribs still aching, and the dried blood on his shirt told a story he didn't want to explain. Inside, the bank was all marble and silence, the kind of place where money moved in whispers. He stepped up to the service counter, sliding the key across the polished surface. The teller, an older man with thin glasses and a sharp gaze, examined it and nodded. Right this way, sir. Aiden followed him through a security door and down a long, sterile hallway. The vault was lined with 100 identical boxes, each holding secrets worth killing for. The teller unlocked the compartment matching Aiden's key, then stepped back, hands folded. Take your time. Aiden hesitated only a second before reaching inside. A single manila envelope. Thick. Heavy. He opened it and pulled out the contents. A photograph, a map, and a USB drive. The photograph made his stomach twist. It was an old picture. Him and Elena, laughing in a dive bar years ago, back when things were simple. Back when she hadn't betrayed him. The map was marked with coordinates, a red X slashed across a location outside the city. But it was the USB drive that sent a chill down his spine. There was a note scrawled across a scrap of paper inside the envelope. If you're reading this, it means I need you. Don't trust anyone. Not even me. Aiden exhaled slowly. Damn it, Elena. She was playing him. Again. But this time, she wanted him to play along. He pocketed the drive, folded the map, and walked out of the bank without looking back. Whatever this was, he was in it now. And he wasn't stopping until he got to the truth. Aiden drove for hours, the city fading into the rearview mirror as he followed the coordinates on the map. The highway stretched endlessly before him, cutting through desolate landscapes where the only company was the occasional road sign and the hum of the engine. The USB drive burned a hole in his pocket, but he wasn't about to plug it into just any machine. He needed to get to the marked location first, find out why Elena had sent him here. The red X on the map led him to an abandoned airfield in the middle of nowhere. Rusted hangars loomed in the distance, skeletal remains of a forgotten era. Aiden pulled his pistol before stepping out of the car, every nerve in his body on high alert. Something about this place felt wrong. The wind howled through the broken windows, carrying the scent of dust and decay. Aiden moved cautiously toward the largest hangar, boots crunching over gravel. As he reached the entrance, he pushed open the heavy metal door and stepped inside, and froze. A laptop sat on a table in the center of the hangar, its screen already glowing, waiting for him. Next to it, a small, red blinking light, recording. He wasn't alone. Aiden's grip on his pistol tightened as the speakers crackled to life. Glad you made it, love. Elena's voice. Aiden turned, gun raised, but there was no one behind him. The hangar was empty. The video on the laptop played. Elena stared back at him from the screen, her expression unreadable. If you're watching this, then you survived. I never doubted you. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You probably want to kill me, and I don't blame you. But you need to hear this first. Aiden stayed silent, his heart pounding. Rook isn't who you think he is, she continued. He's not just another player in the game. He owns the board, and he's been watching us for a long time. The screen flickered, showing security footage, Grainy images of Aiden and Elena from years ago. Meetings. Conversations. Kisses stolen in the dark. Rook had been tracking them since the beginning. Elena's voice turned urgent. I did what I had to do to keep you alive. Betraying you wasn't part of the plan, but it was the only way to get close enough to him. She hesitated. I need you to finish this. The screen cut to black. Aiden clenched his jaw. His pulse thundered in his ears. She had played him, used him, lied to him, but she had also given him the one thing no one else had, a way to fight back. The laptop's final message blinked on the screen. Coordinates uploaded. Rook's last known location. Make it count. Aiden exhaled slowly, then reached for his gun. It was time to end this. One last job. One last bullet. One last chance to make things right. And if Elena was lying, if this was just another trick, then he'd deal with it the only way he knew how. With a bullet. Aiden walked out of the hangar and into the night, ready for war.